One of the most dangerous forces in human life is not evil, it is incompetence combined with certainty. The ancient Greeks understood something that modern people often forget. A foolish person can cause more damage than a malicious one, because evil at least understands what it wants. The incompetent person does not even understand the consequences of his own actions. The Greeks had a word for a quality that has become increasingly rare: phronesis, practical wisdom. It is not simply intelligence. It is the ability to navigate reality, understand people, recognize circumstances, and make sound decisions when there is no perfect answer. The opposite is certainty. People become intellectually weak the moment they believe they already possess the answer to everything. They reduce a complicated world into simple slogans. This is why the government is failing. This is how people should behave. This group is good. That group is evil. They stop observing, they stop questioning, they stop thinking. Instead, they move along a narrow mental track, repeating ideas they absorb from someone else while believing those ideas are entirely their own. The world continues changing around them, but they remain locked inside a single explanation. This becomes especially dangerous when certainty reaches positions of power. History offers countless examples. The Peloponnesian War provides one of the clearest. Athens convinced itself that invading Sicily could bring enormous rewards and weaken its enemies. The vision was attractive, the confidence was enormous, but the assumptions underneath it were not examined deeply enough. Certainty replaced strategy, and when people who are certain of themselves acquire power, their mistakes become everyone else's problem. This is why real intelligence requires something more difficult than having answers: the ability to live with questions. John Keats called this quality negative capability, the ability to remain comfortable with uncertainty and contradiction without immediately forcing reality into a convenient conclusion. A mature mind can hold two opposing ideas at once. A person can be flawed and still possess goodness. A decision can have benefits and consequences. An opponent can be wrong without being completely evil. You can believe something strongly while remaining open to the possibility that you are mistaken. That is not weakness, that is intellectual strength. Creativity itself depends upon this ability. The strongest thinkers do not rush to collapse every contradiction. They allow possibilities to remain open long enough to examine them. They think in possibilities rather than prisons, and this principle extends beyond thought into power. Power is largely psychological. People often imagine that those who rise to the top simply possess the greatest talent or produce the best measurable results. Reality is rarely so clean. In organizations, politics, business, and social life, people are constantly interpreting appearances. How confident do you seem? How composed are you? How predictable are you? What do people believe about you before you even enter the room? This is where reputation becomes a form of power. Your reputation travels ahead of you. It influences how people interpret everything you do. If you are known as competent, a mistake may be treated as an exception. If you are known as unreliable, even a good decision may be viewed with suspicion. The action may be identical. The interpretation changes. That is why credibility is one of the most valuable forms of invisible capital a person can possess. Money can be earned again. Opportunities can return. But credibility is different. Once people stop believing you, every future action is viewed through the lens of doubt. There is no simple return policy on trust. The same principle applies to brands. A company becomes powerful not merely because of what it sells, but because of what people expect from it. If people associate a brand with quality, they approach it with confidence. That reputation then attracts more attention, more customers, and more opportunities, reinforcing itself. Reputation compounds, but it can also collapse. One careless decision, one reckless statement, one moment of dishonesty can become part of the story people tell about you. And in the age of social media, nothing truly disappears. Something said casually today can resurface years later when circumstances have changed completely. The mistake is thinking that every action exists in isolation. It doesn't. Everything contributes to the larger picture people form of you. This is why self-control matters. Before you speak, ask yourself what your words will look like tomorrow. Before you publish something, ask how a stranger would interpret it without knowing your intentions. Because people rarely judge the person you believe yourself to be. They judge the evidence you give them. And that brings us to another uncomfortable truth. Reputation requires consistency. People want simple formulas. They want to know who you are. He is disciplined. She is reliable. He is intelligent. She is calm under pressure. These identities become mental shortcuts through which people interpret your behavior. If you constantly change your principles merely to follow the direction of the crowd, people may see flexibility, but they may also see weakness. If every situation produces a different version of you, others have nothing stable to trust. The goal is not to become rigid, it is to become coherent. Adapt your tactics, but understand your principles. Change your strategy when reality demands it, but do not change your entire identity with every passing wind. The deepest form of power is therefore not domination. It is perception combined with judgment. Observe before deciding. Question before declaring. Think beyond the obvious consequence. Hold contradictory possibilities without panic. Protect your credibility. And never become so certain of your own intelligence that you stop noticing how much you still do not understand. Because the world does not punish ignorance nearly as severely as it punishes confident ignorance. The wise person knows that reality is larger than any single explanation. The powerful person knows that people respond not only to what you are, but to what they believe you are. And the truly dangerous person is the one who understands neither. Reputation is not simply what people say about you, it is the mental image they carry of you when you are not in the room. That image must have a core. People can tolerate change when they can understand the reason behind it. If you once believed one thing and later believe another, show the path between the two. Let people see the thinking that changed you. What destroys credibility is not changing your mind. It is changing your identity whenever the wind changes. A person who constantly adjusts himself to whatever is popular begins to look hollow. There is no center, no recognizable character, nothing for others to grasp. And when there is no core, reputation becomes vulnerable. Never surrender control of your reputation completely to other people. The moment you allow others to define you, you create a vacuum, and someone else will rush to fill it. But there is another side to reputation. If you understand how people perceive others, you understand how easily reputation can be weakened. A contradiction, an inconsistency, a detail that does not fit the image can create doubt. This is why reputation is both armor and weakness. Protect it carefully, but understand it even more carefully. The same principle applies to your uniqueness. Most people spend their lives trying to become replaceable. They dress like everyone else, speak like everyone else, consume what everyone else consumes, and gradually erase the qualities that once made them different. They believe fitting in will protect them. In reality, it makes them disposable. If your work can be performed by anyone, eventually someone cheaper, younger, or more convenient can replace you. The defense is not to become better at being ordinary. It is to become difficult to imitate. There is something about you that cannot be perfectly reproduced. Your interests, your instincts, your way of seeing patterns, your strange combinations of curiosity and taste, all of these form a particular configuration that belongs only to you. The tragedy is that most people spend years trying to destroy this configuration. It begins in childhood. There is a small voice inside you that pulls you toward certain things. You want to write, you want to build, you want to perform, you want to investigate, you want to spend hours alone. You want to understand how things work. Then the outside voices become louder. Parents tell you what is practical. Teachers tell you what is acceptable. Friends tell you what is cool. Society tells you what success should look like. Eventually, the original voice becomes difficult to hear, and you begin living according to someone else's definition of yourself. This is the great danger of conformity. You can become successful at being a person you were never meant to be. Look at the people who have left a lasting mark on culture. They rarely succeeded by becoming perfect representatives of the average. They were unusual, their obsessions were unusual, their methods were unusual, their personalities were unmistakable. Their difference became their signature. That is why your oddness should not automatically be treated as a defect. The strange habit you were embarrassed about as a child may become the very thing that distinguishes you as an adult. The desire to spend time alone may become concentration. The tendency to ask endless questions may become intellectual curiosity. The obsession with a particular subject may become mastery. The sensitivity you once considered weakness may become your ability to understand people. The qualities that seem inconvenient in one environment can become extraordinary advantages in another. The question is not always, how do I get rid of this? Sometimes the better question is, how can I turn this into strength? This requires self-knowledge. You must discover what repeatedly pulls you back. After years of trying to fit in, what interests remain? What do you do when nobody is watching? What subjects can hold your attention for hours? What activities make you lose track of time? What qualities do the people closest to you appreciate about you that you yourself sometimes criticize? These clues reveal your nature, and nature should not always be fought. There is an enormous difference between swimming against yourself and learning how to direct your natural current. If you are naturally curious, become an investigator. If you are naturally solitary, use solitude to develop depth. If you are naturally social, build relationships and networks. If you notice details others overlook, turn that perception into a skill. The goal is not to eliminate your nature, it is to master it. Even your weaknesses may contain an unused strength. A person who is excessively considerate may become excellent at understanding others. A person who asks too many questions may become an exceptional researcher. A person who loves solitude may discover the concentration required for deep creative work. The mistake is labeling these traits too quickly. Do not judge yourself before you understand yourself. You may be throwing away the very qualities that could make you distinctive. This is why strange people can be so valuable as role models. They demonstrate possibilities that the crowd has not yet accepted. When you see someone behaving differently without shame, you suddenly realize that the invisible rules surrounding you were never laws. They were simply conventions. A person carrying a ball everywhere may look ridiculous until you realize that he is completely comfortable being himself. A teacher whose methods seem strange may influence a student precisely because he refuses to behave like every other teacher. A creator who refuses to make his work resemble everything already on the market may initially look foolish. But if the work succeeds, the very qualities people criticized become the reason it is remembered. The crowd tends to reward familiarity. History remembers distinction. Your task then is not to become strange merely for attention. That is another form of conformity. Instead, discover the difference that is already there. Study it, develop it, strengthen it, give it discipline. Then build your work around it. You do not need to announce that you are unique. If you truly are, people will eventually notice. And that is the deepest form of being irreplaceable, not pretending to be different, but becoming so fully yourself that imitation becomes impossible. The world does not need another copy. It needs what only you can contribute.